Hello, 1-2 group. Good morning. I'm sorry I'm looking like this. I just got done running. But I was thinking about when I was running, maybe running out of time. Maybe some of you want to get those quizzes in. It's due before noon NMMI time today. Don't forget. Make sure you keep checking your group emails. Okay, so what is really today about? Real brief, real short. We're going to talk a little bit about the beginning of the Paris Peace Conference. And this does relate to your Iron Dice essay, all right, by Stoessinger. Was Germany solely to blame for the war? That's the key question. And why I'm bringing that up is that has to do with the Paris Peace Conference and the Treaty of Versailles. In 1919, when Woodrow Wilson, the American president, David Lloyd George, who was the British prime minister, Georges Clemenceau, it's a fun name, the French minister, and then Vittorio Orlando, the Italian, showed up to meet. These were the big four at the Paris Peace Conference. Now, I'm not going to try to get too much into the Peace Conference this video. I will do another one because it's an unbelievable place to study. It's an event that's like none other. I've never read a peace conference where everybody in the world seems to come, so it must have been a big deal. But let's go back to the point. Was Germany solely to blame? According to the Treaty of Versailles, in Article 231, the answer was yes. This was written into the Treaty of Versailles. Now, the Germans, remember, had an armistice November 11th, 1918, and they thought basically the war was along a draw. They knew there would be some kind of concessions in some way, some kind of punishment. They thought it'd be minor. Once they saw the Treaty of Versailles, which is like around 400 articles, and you can read it if you wish, let me tell you, it's kind of boring. But Article 231 jumped out at them the most, that they were solely to blame for the war. Now, why am I bringing this up? It goes right back to the Iron Dice. And the Iron Dice, you know, if you're reading, that's the key to this question. That's why I gave it to you. World War I is a spigot that the rest of the 20th century comes out of. Because let's ask this question. Who wasn't at the Treaty of Versailles? The Russians weren't. Why? Because they had the revolution, okay, 1919. They were still having trouble, by the way, and they're now becoming a communist system. This was a concern by a lot of people sitting around the table, the Treaty of Versailles. This is definitely a problem for the French, for the British, but for the Germans just as much. Now, the Germans solely to blame for the war begs some questions. Were they? When you look at it, that's why with Stoessinger, you notice how he breaks down in the Iron Dice into three parts. The first part, in the first act, so to speak, he looks at Germany dealing with the assassination. He looks at Austria in the second part. And in the third part, he looks at Russia. It's a nice delineation. And because of this, you can absorb it. And I've never read anyone who really does it this way in studying World War I. Most of the times, it's just this mangled group that comes in. It's almost like, if you know what I mean by the publication, The Onion had written it. In fact, The Onion did write something about World War I, and it's probably the funniest thing I've ever seen. I'll see if I can find it. I'll send it to you if you want. Just let me know. But the bottom line is, was Germany solely to blame? And so when they come into the peace conference, the Germans are hit with three things, and they're all with the letter R. Okay, so here we go. The first one is the Germans would remove, okay, themselves from certain parts of Europe. They were reduced. You like that R? And so when they were reduced this way, what happens is the number one place, here's the letter R again to look up, is the Rhineland. In the Rhineland, the French wanted them absolutely out. And then therefore the question was, well, who gets the Rhineland? Not the French is what the Americans and Brits said. So instead, it became demilitarized. There was no armies that were supposed to occupy there. Now keep that in mind as we move to World War II. You got it, fully the spigot. Okay, if you don't get World War I, you won't get World War II. And if you don't study the Paris Peace Conference, you're going to have a trouble with World War II. Okay, so they're to remove themselves from the Rhineland. The second thing, the other R. Now I use remove, now I'm going to hit you with reduce again. The Germans were told to reduce their military. The British, of course, you can guess, wanted the Germans to reduce. None of them, their Navy, you got it, okay. Scuttle the Navy. Okay, the other thing is, of course, the French. The French wanted them to reduce their soldiers, to reduce the army. This would make the French feel so much secure and safe. Besides them building this mammoth thing called the Maginot Line, You think the French were a little insecure? Yes, 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 they were. In fact, it's the Treaty of Versailles for a reason. It's written in Versailles. You know this now, just outside of Paris, and it's got French fingerprints all over it. It's a punitive peace. It's a horrible peace. In fact, a lot of historians said if you want to make a bad peace, it's a good thing to study. I like the Gallagherism. It took too long and they got it wrong. Okay, so that's kind of my view of it. Now, the third R, okay, is reparations. Now, reparations is real simple. Let's say you're out and you're playing baseball, although I don't want to get into it today, right now. And you hit the ball and it breaks a neighbor's window, then you would have reparations due. Okay, this would be you going to pay for the window. Okay, the Germans are told you got to pay for the war. I mean, you can imagine this. It's pretty interesting, and there's a lot of good political cartoons showing this. My favorite one is where the Allies, which are really the big four. Okay, and I hate to say the Allies because Americans were an associated power when you get down to it and you study it. It's even on the cover of the Versailles Treaty, the very opening piece. It says allies, meaning Britain and France, and associated power, America. So the whole idea is when you look at this political cartoon, it shows the big four: Woodrow Wilson, Lloyd George, Clemenceau, and Orlando, with a spoon, and they're feeding this big pill to these Germans who are forced to open their throat and take it. It's a bitter pill. The reparations depends which historian you read, but it's around 33 billion with a B, billion dollars. Okay, that the Germans are forced to pay. All right, and this is horrifying. The Germans don't like it. You can read if you want, look up primary sources. The Berlin newspapers have quite a bit to say about it. Germany by 1919 was in a terrible state. One, the Kaiser had abdicated. That guy you're reading about in the Iron Dice, yeah. He had abdicated, and the thought was things would go better from the Germans because they had become a democratic system, a republic, and by doing so, this would be a benefit, okay, in the peace proceedings. That's kind of a rehabilitation. Now, there are rehabilitated Germany. Didn't work out that way. The R that I'm really going to leave you with, that the Versailles Treaty really would be best explained as, is revenge. Okay, but revenge is best served cold. Okay, and by the way, if you want to get into it, World War I, yes, if you study it and you look at the Paris Peace Conference, you see the beginnings of the Cold War without any question. Yes, you do. Okay, now, so think about this. Connect this to your iron dice, the Germans, Austrians, and the Russians, who Stoessinger deals with. And that's what I want you to deal with. I don't want you to Google them, tell them what people think about this or that. It's you and the essay. It's one-on-one. It's an iron cage match with the iron dice, okay? So I want to make sure that you know that, all right? But think on this a little bit, and I will send you something. Keep watching on the group email that will assist you in organizing. Plus, here, if you don't know it or not, I'm going to have some class sessions Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday from 13:30 to 15:30 in MMI time, okay, that you can sit with me in my Zoom room and we can talk about it, meaning I'd like you to tell me what you got. Okay, please do that. If you don't, then hey, I guess you're on your own. Isolation is not so good. Okay, you should come out every now and then and see me. I get lonely anyway. All right, thank you. You have a good day. Be safe, be healthy. Bye bye.